going to be one long video.
It's probably going to be one long video. I'm not very good at editing. I'll try to edit it. Let's put it that way.
Well, okay. Are you started?
Yes.
Oh, great. All right, so what we have here is a rainfall simulator. On the left, we have our non-permeable surface, representative of a parking lot with stains, just like you see at any large store around town. Stains from oil, from brake fluid, antifreeze, anything like that.
Okay.
Second tub represents most people's yards, and majority of America has a landscape surface in their yards or around a business or something like that.
This is a little greener than mine is right now.
I'm amazed. It's doing wonderful. This third one is an example of basically a non-controlled plot. I typically explain it as maybe a feedlot where overgrazing has occurred, root structure has died out, and it is just loose soil that will go wherever the water carries it.
Okay.
The last one is native grasses. There are some weeds mixed in with my native grasses, but this is representative of how Texas used to be long before we came here. And, you know, every so often there'd be a big thunderstorm, lightning strikes, it would burn the grasses down, the root structure would stay intact, and it would grow back strong and beautiful. And the underlying principle of all this is that a root structure in place holds soil. When soil is held in place, it doesn't go somewhere else, and it allows the water to permeate and infiltrate into the ground and recharge our aquifers. But that water goes into other areas also, rivers and streams.
Okay.
Okay, so from there we can go ahead and make it rain. And what we are going to see is a little bit of windy rain, which does happen once in a while in Texas.
Like this week.
Exactly. Or we may get more sleet. But what we're going to notice here is because of the dense vegetation, you're going to have very little to almost no runoff, and that would come out of the surface pipe. The bottom pipe is infiltration that's water percolating down into the soil and eventually could reach an aquifer. And we see it coming out, it's pretty good clear water. But yet, and I don't know how well you can see right there, you can see mud, rock, gravel, different layers. And those different layers are filtering the water as it comes through.
Okay. Now,
at a slow, controlled rate.
This filtering, is that going to clean up some of the pollution that we create?
Without being specific about what the pollutants are, it'd be really hard to say what it can and cannot clean up. However, we know we have all this smog and acid rain and all this sort of problems in different areas, and we know our groundwater does not have traces of that stuff.
Okay.
You know, what we find in groundwater is more what we've applied on the surface of the ground, and that has infiltrated down, maybe excessive fertilizers, things like that. But the earth is the model for the perfect water filter.
Okay.
You know, everyone that's made water filter since has been trying to replicate what the earth naturally does.
Okay.
So we have pretty good clear water.
Okay.
And if I was a master earth designer, that would come out crystal clear. All right, now in our feedlot, and the reason I say a feedlot, in central Texas, we have a lot of areas that are overgrazed, way too many animals in one area, small area, and they eat all the vegetation down, and then they actually dig down and dig up roots, and there's no structure there anymore to keep that soil in place. One of the biggest problems with that soil is it is covered with animal waste and possibly other bad byproducts, and so that gets washed with it. It gets carried wherever that water gets carried, and we had a lot of erosion that came down into our runoff, and that's going onto other people's properties, into our rivers and our streams in Texas. And what is infiltrating, some of it does with the right amount of saturation, it will infiltrate, but you notice that's a lot dirtier than the native grasses.
Very true.
And the rock inside, as a disclaimer, the rock inside is kind of clouding it a little bit, but the concept sounds. All right, now to our front yard. And I had some splash over. Let me switch this real quick. Some of my feedlot splashed over, and I didn't want that to taint the results.
Okay.
One of the great things about even surface covering, turf grass or native grasses, is you have very little to no surface runoff. What's come out there is probably just a little bit accumulating based on my poor design, but typically that everything is held there in place unless you have an excessive rainfall. But everything's held there in place and it's soaking down, and we see it's filtered really well because it's not carrying the soil with it. It's filtering through the soil, through the rocks, and the other sediment down there.
This is so cool.
It's a lot of fun.
It is.
And then, let's take, for example, now I'm just going to use some mud, but let's imagine the parking lot down at the local, big superstore, and we have things that litter. We have the different liquids that have spilled in the parking lot. Over the part of America that has pavement everywhere you go. It carries everything on the surface. The concrete's not going to get carried away, but whatever is on the top gets carried. And a lot of that water goes directly from storm drains into the public waterways. And in other areas it can actually sit, collect, and infiltrate into the ground with all those contaminants. So we see whatever is sitting on the surface got carried away, and now my rain in the back, let me add a little bit of good Texas rain.
Yes. That's the rain I know in Texas.
Yes. When it rains, it pours. And we see everything gets washed away because nothing can penetrate that surface. And so when we cover the earth with more parking lots, roads, and driveways, we really are reducing the amount of infiltration that can occur. And natural filtration. They've actually worked on ways to, they've created new paving stones, for example, that are permeable. The water can actually go through them. Matter of fact, I was just visiting the BRIC, the Baylor Research Center.
Okay.
It used to be an old warehouse, General Tire, I believe.
Okay.
And they put some of those pavers in their walkway going up, so water can actually infiltrate into the ground, which is a great design idea.
Washington State actually, their conservation districts had something like that, and we got to see it when I was living up there. Very cool.
I visited some other groundwater districts in the state of Texas, and some of them have added that into their landscaping. We use native plants, but we hope to expand back here into more of a nature walk area.
Okay.
The district owns land back here, and we try to leave it as natural as possible.
Okay.
We collect our rainwater.
I see that.
It gets used in our plants. We have all Texas native plants
Very cool.
around here because they don't need that much water.
Very cool.
It's really that simple, and they look great.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Mr. Straight. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming down.